Hi all, hope you're staying safe and well. Today for our Romeo and Juliet lesson, what we're going to have a look at is some of the in-between scenes of several important interactions within Act 3. So the last lesson we had a look at with Act 3 Scene 1 was the death of Tybalt and Mercutio and Romeo's banishment. The next few scenes help to see the impact of that on the characters, how they're feeling, their emotions. It's almost like a reflection after this rising action of that opening scene of Act 3. And then we're going to go through these quite quickly because it's a lot about just gauging people's reactions, heading towards the end of Act 3 where Romeo and Juliet are reunited in the final scene. So I hope it's really, really useful for you. There's lots of key quotations to have a look at about the ideas and looking at transitions between different scenes. Obviously, it's important to understand and to know how different characters are reacting at different times across the play. So this is hopefully going to be really useful for that. Okay, so with these three scenes that we're going to look at which are Act 3 scenes 2, 3 and 4, I'm going to run it slightly differently. What I've done is I've done a timeline of action within these three scenes, and we're going to follow that through, and we're going to have a little section devoted to each scene and about what the most important ideas that are present there are. So as we follow this through, we have the notes in black, which are the key events, the key moments in these three scenes, and then in blue is the quotations. At the end of the video, I'm going to ask you to have a look at what you think this reveals about the characters and what this reveals about their state of mind due to this new set of circumstances at the end of Act 3, Scene 1, where Romeo is being banished. Okay, so at the end of Act 3, Scene 1, we have Romeo, the proclamation from the prince that Romeo is banished from Verona. He's not going to be punished by death, which is what the initial sentence was going to be. He's going to be punished by exile. So in Act 3, Scene 2, we have Juliet's reaction to this. So what we start with is Juliet is waiting for Romeo to return. She asks the knight to come quickly so that Romeo can be there for it. She says, "Spread thy curtain, love-performing night, come Romeo." And she describes the day as tedious, the day as boring, as if it is that she's waiting for Romeo. The nurse arrives, and in the way that the nurse is, she is quite direct and yet tells Juliet the wrong thing. She cries out, he's dead, we are undone." And immediately Juliet thinks that this is Romeo. She says, "Oh, break my heart, break at once. Is this Romeo who is dead?" And the nurse has to correct Juliet and say, "Oh no, it's Tybalt who's died, and it is Romeo who has killed him. This is your husband now, who has killed your dear cousin." Now what we see here is Juliet confused about Romeo. She uses a lot of parallels, very similar to the way that Romeo did at the start of Act 1, where he's talking about bright smoke and cold fire. She describes Romeo in both terms of violence but also in terms of love. So we have a serpent hid with a flowering face, a beautiful tyrant, a fiend angelical, a damned saint, an honourable villain. All of these parallels being used to describe Romeo and how he is both beautiful to Juliet and also a violent character. Now the nurse, having known Tybalt his entire life, is remaining loyal to Tybalt, and she questions Juliet's loyalty to Romeo. The nurse says, "Will you speak well of him who killed your cousin?" Whereas Juliet says, "Shall I speak ill of him that killed my husband? My husband lives that Tybalt would have slain." So Juliet rushes to Romeo's defence, and she says that Romeo must have acted in that way for a particular reason. It's not that he's done this just for no reason, and she is not going to speak ill of Romeo. When it is said that Romeo has been banished, Juliet is completely devastated. She says, "There is no end, no limit. That word is death." So, much in the same way we will see Romeo reacting in the next scene, Juliet sees this punishment as even worse than if Romeo is to be executed. The fact there is no end or limit to his exile, the fact that she will never see him again. And the scene ends with the nurse leaving to find Romeo, and Juliet says, "Tell him to come here, to say his last goodbye, the sense of finality and the sense of that their relationship is now going to be coming to an end, and that she has this one last chance to say goodbye to him. Okay, the next scene we look at is Act 3, Scene 3, which is almost like a parallel to Act 3, Scene 2. So in Act 3, Scene 2, we have Juliet's reaction to Romeo's banishment. In Act 3, Scene 3, we have Romeo's reaction to this. So Romeo is hiding at Friar Lawrence's cell, so his where he prays, so that he's with the friar and he's there to just to hide and lie low so that nobody can find him. The nurse arrives and gives him Juliet's ring to show her love for him. So at the start, Romeo is told that he's banished, and he says that actually he would rather be dead because exile is forever. Death would be a moment. So if he has to be apart from Juliet forever, that would be worse. He says, there is no world without Verona's walls, but purgatory, torture, hell itself. Banished is banished from the world. So he's using this sort of hyperbole, this exaggerated language that we know Romeo uses very often. Friar Lawrence isn't putting up with any of this nonsense, and he reminds Romeo that he could easily have been put to death. He says, this is a dear mercy, and thou sees it not. He's not prepared to let Romeo say that this is a fate worse than hell. He says it could easily have been much, much worse. Romeo, on the other hand, says that banishment is torture as it takes him away from Juliet. He says it's torture and not mercy. Heaven is here where Juliet lives. And at that Juliet lives, sorry. And then at that moment there is a knock on the door and the nurse arrives. The friar says, arise, one knocks, good Romeo, hide thyself. So we know that Romeo is at this point having to be very sneaky. He can't be seen to be in Verona or he will be put to death, he will be punished. The nurse arrives and tells Romeo how Juliet is in a deep, mournful state. He says she is blubbering and weeping, weeping and blubbering. She says nothing, sir, but weeps and weeps. So we have these two characters who are in complete despair at the situation they find themselves in. The friar tells Romeo how lucky. He says, the law that threatens death has become thy friend, a pack of blessings light upon thy back. The fact that he's blessed that he's not going to be executed, he is lucky. They will come up with a plan and then something will happen. They will come up with an idea to bring the two lovers back together. Romeo leaves at the end of Act 3, Scene 3 to go and spend one final night with Juliet before escaping to Mantua, which is another Italian city, and he leaves with a past joy calls to me. So the scene ends on a positive with Romeo leaving to be with Juliet and to be reunited, possibly for the last time. Okay, and the final scene we're going to look at today is Act 3, Scene 4, which doesn't include Romeo or Juliet, but includes a plot device that is going to be extremely significant for the rest of the play. In Act 3, Scene 4, Lord Capulet decides that now would be a good time for Paris to marry Juliet. He's just suffered a family tragedy and he feels that it would be something that would bring joy to Juliet and it would bring joy to him and bring everyone back together again. So Lord Capulet thinks Juliet is in mourning for Tybalt. He tells Paris she loved her kinsman Tybalt dearly. Now as an audience we've got this dramatic irony because we know that in fact she's in mourning for Romeo, but Lord Capulet doesn't know this because he doesn't know about the wedding either. Lord Capulet assures Paris that Juliet will marry him. I think she will be ruled in all respects by me, I doubt it not. She shall be married to this noble earl. So here we see the traditional values of the Shakespearean society, where daughters were expected to obey their fathers. She will be ruled in all respects by her father. He's going to take control of who she's going to marry, and he's chosen that Paris is the man who's going to be suitable for this. So Paris is overjoyed by this, and he's very excited to marry Juliet. He says, my lord, I would that Thursday were tomorrow. And they agree that Thursday will be the wedding day. He's so pleased and excited by this. He's obviously been courting Juliet for some time and feels that this is going to be a wonderful thing for him. Now, Lord Capulet says that he will go and tell Juliet, or if he'll get someone to tell Juliet the news, prepare her wife for this wedding day. So he tells Lady Capulet to go and speak to Juliet and let her know that the decision he has made. Now, obviously, this is foreshadowing the events of the rest of the play, and Juliet is going to be absolutely distraught by this. She's already married in secret. She can't marry Paris and become a bigamist where she's married to two different people. But at the same time, she doesn't know how to tell her family this. So setting up the action for the rest of the play and the dramatic fall of Romeo and Juliet. Okay, for you to do today, we're going to have a look at Act 3, scenes 2, 3 and 4, but I would like you to have a look at the quotations in blue from the page that I've done here, the timeline looking across these 3 scenes. Obviously they're quite important for getting our characters' reactions and understanding their feelings and emotions at this time after Romeo's exile. If you'd like to download these from Google Classroom, you're more than welcome to, or if you want to take a screen grab, they're going to pop up on screen now, so you should be able to see the whole thing. And I take the quotations in blue, see what you learn about the characters from there. Have a look at it, and then if you stay tuned at the end of today, we've got today's film recommendation for you. Okay, for your film recommendation today, I've gone for something slightly different. This is a spin-off from a TV series after the end of a fantastic TV series, one of the best of all time, and that is El Camino, which follows the story of Jesse Pinkman after the end of the events of Breaking Bad. Fantastic film. It's a Netflix original. It features lots of different callbacks to the series, and at the moment I'm watching Better Call Saul, so there's lots of things that fit in with there as well. Really worth checking out. And hope you enjoy it. Until next time, when we'll be having a look at Act 3, Scene 5, I hope you stay safe and take care.